Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're giving you our fantasy football wide receiver rankings for 2020. We're continuing ahead and specifically talking about wide receiver twos. That's right. These are the upside wide receivers you need to target in the earlier rounds of your fantasy football draft. Let's start this fantasy football podcast right now.
Hit that drop. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Upside. I am Justin and that is Kyle, and we want to say thanks for dropping by our Fantasy Football podcast and YouTube channel. Hey Kyle, guess what?
What?
We made it to episode 40.
Oh, there it is. Wait. Oh no, I don't have it shared, do I? Oh, I'm so sad.
And that's why we're only on episode 40. Anyways, today we will continue our updated fantasy football wide receiver rankings for 2020. And next up are our wide receiver twos. We already took care of the wide receiver threes in our episode yesterday, so go ahead and check that out in the description below. Kyle Point, where they can find it as well.
Boop.
Rotter. Sorry, Kyle, what do you got?
Rottweiler. It's going to be Rottweiler. Hey guys, I don't have a whole lot for you. Just make sure you click that subscribe button. We try to bring value to you and do it in an entertaining way. Look, this is all about you guys. Yeah, we think it's fun for us. We hope it's fun for you. And we want to see you guys win. Like, we really want to help everybody win their fantasy league. Now, not all of you can because some of you are in the same league together. But look, guys, you know what? We want to have inspiration to grow our channel. And so if you click that subscribe button and click that notification bell, that helps us to grow our channel so that we can actually, have motivation to keep doing this. We want to make sure that we do this all year. Share this with your friends. If you think we're terrible, then share it with your enemies. Share it with your league mates. Then tell all of them to sign up with us and that sort of thing. Hey, it's win-win for us. It's win-win for you as well. If you like us, you can keep a secret. If you don't, give us to everybody. All right. All right. Let's dive headfirst into the shallow end here and start these fantasy football wide receiver rankings for 2020. Right off the top, we've got number 24, Little Cooper Kupp with the Rams, right? I call him Little Cooper Kupp because he is Justin's Little Cooper Kupp.
My Little Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, your Little Cooper
I stole
Kupp.
that from Matthew Berry. He called him that, so I can't really take that.
Oh, well, okay. Yeah, I don't really care what Matthew Berry says or thinks. He's often wrong, but he's very well paid to be very
well paid to be wrong.
Yeah. I like Cooper Kupp. I like Robert Woods a little bit more. That's just the way it breaks down for me. And I think that this offense is going to be better this year than it was last year. So that I think that you can really rely on Cooper Kupp to show up in the wide receiver 2 back end, top end wide receiver 3. I think that's a reliable spot for him. I think he presents a good level of upside because if that offense starts clicking and Jared Goff gets back into the territory of 6, 7, 8 QB, then he's only going to do that through both Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Woods gets his volume. It doesn't matter what's going on. He's going to get his volume. Cooper Kupp is also a volume guy to some extent. And if he gets his volume back because Jared Goff is making it happen, he's worth it. He's worth this pick, right? I need to look and see where he's going right now.
He's probably going in the teens for wide receivers. So that would be my guess.
He's actually going wide receiver 11.
Yeah.
A 7th pick of the 3rd round. That's a little pricey for me. I'm not taking him there. I'd like him as a wide receiver 2.
Yep.
So, what do you got for me on him?
Well, okay, let's start with Little Cooper Kupp. So they're probably drafting him because of what he did the first half of the season. So weeks 1 to 8, he was wide receiver number 2. But 9 through 16, he was wide receiver 45. And the reason why is he lost a lot of snaps towards the end of the season. He was on the bench. And there was no kind of rumors about the knee. He had a torn ACL. He came back already that last year. There's no reports of anything happened with the knee. So that's kind of surprising of why he was on the bench whenever they ran that 12 personnel.
Yes,
they decided they didn't want him. Yeah, they didn't want him as the second wide receiver. And we mentioned this already. We have Robert Woods ahead of Cooper Kupp, and that's not the same with a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
That can't be ignored whenever he was on the bench. I do think he's going to come back and perform enough that he's going to be on the field at the same time with Robert Woods. So, but it's still one of those things where it's hard to trust him being more than a wide receiver 2. So that's why we have him towards the end of our wide receiver 2 rankings.
Yep.
So, for low end wide receiver 2. So up next at number 23, it's a guy that we both really enjoy. And if you've been following along, we talk about him quite a bit and players with the team. And that's Marvin Jones. And
poor man's Kenny Galladay.
He's on the same team.
Yeah.
But I mean, weeks 1 through 14, he was wide receiver 12 in fantasy football and non-DVR and standard scoring. Yeah. And it's like the opposite. You know what I mean? Like people knew Cooper Kupp. People love Cooper Kupp. And, but Marvin Jones was out there balling out. And it always seems to be balling out. But guess what? He plays for the Lions.
Well, he's always played for like trash offenses usually. Well, like I wouldn't call them a trash offense. Cincinnati Bengals, right?
Who was their longtime quarterback recently?
Red Rifle. Right?
Red Rifle. Yeah, check out our last episode. I had a little bit of a blunder there. There won't be any bleeps out because we don't do that.
No, we don't bleep it, but we should have.
But Marvin Jones, I mean, the dude's a stud. He's a touchdown machine. With Matthew Stafford back, the guy probably wants to throw another 5,000 yards, and that means you can sustain a few weapons on the team. Yeah. And that's why we think this guy is very much underrated. And we have him at wide receiver 23. Heck, we might even see him in the teens when we get closer to the season.
Yeah, I want to say I've probably got him a little bit further
you got him
up
a little,
my board.
Even better than me when it comes to rankings. I still have him at wide receiver 31.
Yeah, and I've got him at 16 right now.
Yeah, you have him at 16, which I don't blame you based on what he did last year.
Yeah, I told you before we
QB.
Yeah, I told you before we started doing this today that he just kept moving up my board. I'm like, well, okay, I don't like where I've got him right now. I'm going to move him up. And then I put him in front of another player. And then I'd go, oh, I want him ahead of that guy too. And so he just kept moving up my board until he was at 16. And I think it's just, look, this offense, Matt Stafford wants to throw for 5,000 yards every game, not just the season, like every game, guys. He really does. And so they're going to have a potent running attack this year, I think, to some extent. I think that DeAndre Swift is going to take over that backfield pretty quickly. And that dude is insane. Yep. Like just go look at some tape on him. That's fun to watch. Some of the stuff that he's able to do, just flat out outrunning dudes off the edge. It's crazy. Now, NFL, a little bit different speed of game, but by having at least a reliable running game, it should cause the defense to concentrate a little bit more in the middle of the field. And Marvin Jones and Kenny Galladay are sideline route runners. These guys run their route tree on the outside of the numbers, basically, it feels like. And they love to catch along the sideline. And Marvin Jones is a touchdown machine. Like, he just catches everything in the red zone. It's insane. He does. So this guy, he's going to be valuable. Go get him. Go and get him. All right, let's move on here. We've got our wide receiver 22 is Michael Gallup with the Dallas Cowboys. I think I've got him a little bit higher than you, possibly. I don't know where I've got him right now. I like Michael Gallup. Go ahead. Oh, I like Michael Gallup. I like him a lot. I think that he is he's the next big guy. Like, I think he's the next true wide receiver one. If there's anybody that I'm looking at right now who I could consistently or easily say is going to move from wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 1 territory, in my mind, by the end of this season, as a guy who's a consistent starter at wide receiver 1 for you, Michael Gallup is one of those guys. I've got maybe 2 or 3 guys total who are, don't talk about total, who are those guys, right? And Michael Gallup is one of them for me. And it has a lot to do with what I think that Mike McCarthy is going to try to do with that offense. Yeah, we talk about and joke about, he went into the cabin in the woods and changed when he came back out. And we don't buy it. We don't buy it. But not only that, the evidence says you shouldn't buy it either.
Right.
They went and drafted a wide receiver in the first round, guys. It's not because they're going to go and, run the option suddenly or hand the ball off 50 times a game. It's because they intend to throw the ball a ton. And they paid Amari Cooper $100 million.
Yep.
But they're just going to hand the ball off to Zeke? No, they're doing that because Mike McCarthy is the same guy And guess what? Mike McCarthy's offenses sustained 3 wide receivers very regularly and 2 easily.
Yep.
And this is the wide receiver 2 on the team. For the time being, at least, he's wide receiver 2 on the team. I don't foresee CeeDee Lamb doing anything except working out of the slot this year. I just don't. So he's a wide receiver, probably front-end wide receiver 2 for me, but he's back-end for us. So that's where he is.
Yeah, I got him a little bit farther down. I got him at wide receiver 28. And that's actually where he finished last year, was wide receiver 28, even though he did actually outsnap Amari Cooper. But Amari Cooper was injury and everything. So, but we love third-year wide receivers, and that's what Michael Gallup's going to be this year. When it comes to, wide receivers and taking the next step, we also look at vacated targets, and Dallas Cowboys is near the top of vacated targets after Randall Cobb's gone.
I think they're number 2.
I think it's number 2 behind. Was it Cardinals? No, I can't remember. Anyways,
I don't think it's Cardinals.
No, I don't think it is. I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. Falcons.
Yeah,
that's who it was. But this guy has the skills. He's progressed every year. And you mentioned Mike McCarthy being in the being the coach now. They want to fire that pigskin, Kyle. And like you said, I think they can sustain multiple wide receivers. And, rookie wide receivers, when it comes to CeeDee Lamb, he's talented, but you just can't count on them to really make an impact. So give me a little bit of wide receiver 2 for Michael Gallup.
And Mike McCarthy's offense has never really been an offense that a wide receiver can step into from college and just excel right off the bat.
Right.
Like it is an offense.
Didn't. It took him a little bit.
It took him several years.
Jordy, that dude is talented.
Oh yeah. And it wasn't like he was trash coming out of college. I mean, he was a touchdown machine coming out of college, actually.
Lower,
he had like 14 TDs his senior year or something like that.
Who he was going up against. I think he was playing for SMU, so it's a little.
No, he didn't. He was. It was one of the California teams that he played for. I don't remember exactly who, but it was Derek Carr. He's the reason Derek Carr is a QB in the NFL. He was Derek Carr's wide receiver. And he was his number 1 target in the end zone. And this dude, I think that Gallup is going to make that leap, but CD is not going to step right into this offense and figure it out. It's much different than that. It looks plain. It's not. So, all right, let's move on. Justin, who do you have at 21 for us?
Number 21, I love to be able to announce this one. It's T.Y. Hilton of the Indianapolis Colts. I am an Indianapolis Colts fan, of course, but we have him here. We're expecting a bounce-back year. We're hoping T.Y. Hilton stays healthy this year because whenever Phillip Rivers has a talented wide receiver, he likes to hone in on those wide receivers. We talked about Keenan Allen in our last episode and how we're fading him a lot because, he was still targeted a lot, Keenan Allen was, in the last couple of years from Phillip Rivers, yet he didn't really do too much with it. We think T.Y. can do a little bit more with the ball in his hands, even at this stage of his career. The guy can still burn the top off of the offense, and Phillip Rivers still loves to launch it, and I think that's what they want to do. They want to set up that play action so they can launch the ball down the field. And the guy's route running still is just insane. And he finds ways to not get hit as well. So that's why, even though he's coming back from injury, you just watch some of his film. He learned from Reggie Wayne. He learned from Marvin Harrison how not to get lit up. And I think T.Y. is going to stay healthy this year. So that's what I got on T.Y.
You hit it right on the head. For me, the reason that he didn't have a great year last year has everything to do with 2 things. He got hurt a lot. Right. He was out. He couldn't come back from an ankle injury that it just persisted. And then you add to that, who was his QB? It was Jacoby Brissett. Now, I think it's, I might be crazy, but I think Phillip Rivers is a little bit of an upgrade over Jacoby Brissett. I don't know much about it, but I think it's a slight upgrade there. So for me, T.Y. Hilton is a solid grab that you can get a little bit later in the draft. I want to double check right now where he is actually going. He's going as wide receiver 14 in the 4th round. That's not a terrible price for him. I think that's a little bit high. That's Fantasy Football Calculator price. I'm betting that if you jump over to Fantasy Pros and you check that out, I'm betting you that he's going somewhere closer to the 6th round in a lot of leagues. If you check out like My Fantasy League or something like that, I bet he's falling into the 6th round actually, if not later. He's going to get a ton of targets. They're going to throw the ball a decent amount. They are going to run it. I think that's why people are fading on that offense a little bit as far as the passing game. But come on, guys. They're still going to throw that ball. That's why they brought Phillip Rivers in. It wasn't like they shied away from trying to throw the ball with Jacoby Brissett. They really tried to. He just couldn't do it. He couldn't do it consistently, accurately. He had a couple games that flashed, but that was it.
Yeah, Fantasy Pros ADP that they use a few different websites and they have him at wide receiver 23. So we're not too far off from that.
Yeah, and which it shows, and so he should be going somewhere between 6th round and 8th round, I would say. All right, so let's move on here to wide receiver 20 for us. We have DJ Chark of the who, Justin? Who?
Jaguars.
Jaguars.
I even wrote that in for you.
Yeah, the Minshew King.
Yes.
So look, DJ Chark is making this step up. We've got him at 20. I think that's just because we probably and I don't get to see a lot of his games. You get to see a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
Being in Colts territory.
Yep.
I don't get to see as much of him. I think that he's primed for a really solid year. The thing that's going to hold him back is that he's in an offense that's manned by somebody who is not exactly an elite quarterback. Somebody who's serviceable, somebody who you're not going to draft. You might start in a pinch, maybe. And it's really a spot start, like if it lines up with your bye week on your main on your QB, and he's just got a phenomenal matchup, like playing against the Colts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No,
that's how this episode is going to go. Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
No, I like. Look, I love Gardner Minshew. I think that I saw that. I think that hit rewind, everyone. I think that he is a solid QB and a great opportunity for this league to create something that is good outside of the field. I just don't see it on the field.
Yeah,
that's my problem. I think it's fun to watch, and you see these big plays down the field every once in a while, but they're few and far between.
Yeah.
The guy who benefits from that is DJ Chark. So look, you can have a non-elite QB with an elite wide receiver. That can happen. It does happen very regularly. I think this is one of those moments when it's going to happen. I think that he's going to finish probably close to the back end of wide receiver 1, top end wide receiver 2, but safe bet, middle wide receiver 2. We might be undervaluing him a little bit, but I think that's the safe play. So
it is,
what do you have for me?
It's definitely a little safer on that because, DJ came out of nowhere last year, even though he was, I think, a second-round pick in the normal NFL draft, but he was headed into the season as the 74th best wide receiver, and yet he actually finished 12th. And that's another one of those ones that people just don't know is the fact that he still finished 12th. But it was a little bit of boom or bust, of course, because of the lack of consistent wide receiver or a QB play. And that's what you're going to get is you're going to get some booms, you're going to get some busts, and at the end of the year, you're probably going to be in that wide receiver 2 range. So you're hoping with another year, another progression of Tiger King Minshew that he can take another step forward with DJ and become a lot more consistent. And we'll see what Jay Gruden can do with that offense. And they do have some pretty good wide receivers in that room. So, but it's still DJ Chark all day long. So I like him right here in this. We've actually moved him down more and more, when it comes to, or is it up? I always get confused whichever way. He's getting towards the number 1.
Yeah, he's moving. He's moving towards wide receiver 1 for us.
Yes,
I don't think he'll settle in there for us though. I think that we're a little more conservative on him.
When our 2 early rankings, our 2 earlier rankings, we actually had him at 29. So we've moved him all the way down to number 20. So we're liking him a lot more the more and more we dig deep into this.
Yep.
So without further ado, we have number 19. Odell Beckham Jr., Cleveland Browns. I still have him ranked a little bit better than you, I think, when it comes to where we're at compared to each other. I still have a little bit more faith just based off the amazing talent that Odell Beckham is. And it is one of those things where even though you're so talented, there's proof that if you're coming over to a new team, that first year is not what you expect compared to previous career. And he was just another one of those players that came over as a amazing talent and kind of have a dud his first year. All the reports saying that he played with a sports hernia for most of the season. He still came out and still tried to play. But he was outperformed by Jarvis Landry. Jarvis made our last episode. Definitely check that out in the description below. And the connection with Baker just wasn't there yet. There's a lot of misses. And I'm thinking another season Maybe they're throwing a little bit here or there in the offseason. You just never know. Hopefully they can progress, and I just still think he's just so uber talented, and if he can stay healthy, I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball.
Yeah. My issue, I've got a few with him.
Yeah.
And it's not with him in particular as so much as it is the situation that he found himself in.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of faith in Baker Mayfield. I think that he has shown what he is, and I don't, everybody's waiting for him to make that next step, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm afraid that he has taken as many steps as he's going to. Let's not forget we're talking about the Browns. And they just have a way of finding those QBs that they hit their ceiling, and everybody's like, well, he's still got more to go, doesn't he? Doesn't he? I mean, the hype said he did. And I'm concerned that that's the case with Baker, but you also have a whole lot of mouths to feed in that offense.
You do.
And Jarvis Landry demands targets because he catches them. He catches everything. And my issue in the end with OBJ is that he is very he feasts on a few targets. And he disappears. He can just totally disappear because he's reliant. This is like Tyreek Hill in a lot of ways, right? 3 to 5 targets, and he could have 150 yards and 3 TDs, right? But he could also have 10 yards and that's it.
Right.
So, and in an offense where there's a lot of targets to, a lot of people who are looking for targets and not enough to go around, and this offense wants to probably run a little bit more. They've got the running guy. They've got the running backs. They've got that high level talent there. They're going to try to do that more. So my concern here is that I just don't see him finally coming back to the level or value that he was. I don't think he's any different as a talent.
Right.
I'm not making any judgment on him as a talent. I'm just saying his situation doesn't really afford him the opportunity to really truly be a consistent value for you that you're looking for at wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 2, sure. I want a guy who's a little more boom or bust possibly.
Right.
Kind of depends a little bit on how I'm building my team too. All right, let's move on here to number 18. We have JuJu Smith-Schuster with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
JuJu.
Yeah. Last episode we talked about Deontay Johnson.
Right.
I forget where we had him, probably 24, 25, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
25, 26, somewhere like that. So we've got JuJu Smith-Schuster. He's on a contract year. They're not giving him one, so he's going to try to buy,
ball out.
Going to try to get that contract lined up somewhere, and he's got to do it by building back from last year. Last year was a bust for him. It really was. So he's got to show that he's still got it, or he's not going to get much money anywhere, right?
Right.
He's got to pull off a Randall Cobb and have a contract year every time it's a contract year, right? And look, JuJu can do that. He's very solid. Like this, I mean, he's a big dude. He's a guy who is a very talented wide receiver. And he's in an offense that is going to throw a lot, that people, for whatever reason, forgot that this team throws a ton. It's like, there's no Le'Veon Bell anymore, guys. Like, he's not there.
Even with Le'Veon, they threw a lot, even to him.
Yeah, even to him, definitely, right? But this is it's just like Matthew Stafford. He wants to throw it 5,000 yards every game.
Right.
He's not going to, but he's going to try. I mean, Roethlisberger will put up 450 yards in a game like it's nothing. And those have to go somewhere, and a lot of them are going to go to JuJu. They really are. Even if he's like having a down year, if Ben Roethlisberger is healthy and he's the one throwing him the ball, I'll take a down year with JuJu.
Right.
I will. Yeah.
Right.
What do you have for me on him? I know that you're higher on him often.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just has to do with the fact I have him in a keeper league, our league, and it's one of those things where, you're going to be a little biased, but, the numbers still back it up when it comes to him and Ben Roethlisberger on the field at the same time. That's what we're hoping for. That's why we have him ranked here at number 18. There are some other ones that are a little higher than us, but, we're kind of pumping the brakes just a little bit because you have to have both players healthy to be impactful when it comes to fantasy football with this team and with this player. So you mentioned before, though, he's contract year. The guy does ball out. He's one of the bigger slot wide receivers in the league. And, he was targeted a lot by Ben Roethlisberger, even with, Antonio Brown on the team. And, he may have performed a little better than Antonio Brown that last year that they were together. So it's one of those things. This guy
absolutely
is talented.
did.
This guy is talented.
Did. Yeah.
He is talented, and I'm hoping for a bounce back year. Maybe just a little bit of selfishness. I'm hoping for a bounce back year, but I think he's going to do it. So
yeah, he could.
Yeah. Up next, number 17, we have Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, we have talked about the other wide receiver with the Seahawks, and that is, DK Metcalf, but we still think this is Tyler Lockett's team. And the only reason why DK really took off, towards the end of his rookie year last year was the fact that Tyler Lockett was hurt.
Yeah.
He was wide receiver 1 on this team, or even in fantasy football before he got hurt. And that just limited for the rest of the season. He still played through it, but you could see he was hampered by that. But Russell Wilson still believes in this guy, and he still wants to throw to Tyler Lockett. And he went into the season as a wide receiver 1 for that team, and I don't think he's coming out of this season. Maybe we're talking differently the next season after this, but it's still his wide receiver room, and he's still going into his prime. I think he's only going to be 27, where he is right now, so that's still pretty good for a wide receiver that's still based on speed. But he's a guy that's based on speed, but in the last 2 years, he's got some of the most touchdowns in the league.
Separation. He gets separation.
You have second most. I think it's the second most in the last 2 years of touchdowns for a guy that people think of slide of height and everything. That just shows that, one, Russell Wilson looks for him in that red zone, and 2, he gets open.
They're
the same height.
That's why they're the same height.
They're eye to eye. What do you got on Tyler Lockett?
It always blows my mind that people just kind of forget about Tyler Lockett. Yeah, they really do. It's like
maybe it's a West Coast bias or something like that.
He's out there.
Don't see him as much.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing in the morning during his time, right? And noon games for him are 9 or 10 a.m. or something. And so, Tyler Lockett, people forget about him. They're sleeping on him. And this isn't an offense that's going to throw a ton. So if you're afraid of DK Metcalf, don't be afraid of him overtaking Tyler Lockett. Be afraid of him taking just a little bit of Lockett's volume, because it's not as though they're going to just suddenly decide, okay, well, let's add 5 more targets into the offense for DK, right? They're not going to do that. This is a run-first offense. It's still coached by Pete Carroll, and until he kicks the bucket, because he's not going to stop coaching, otherwise I'm convinced, until that day comes, he's going to make sure that they run that ball first. Second down. They're going to do that. They don't want to throw unless they've got to. They just don't want to, unless, they've got to catch up games or something, which often happens toward the end of the season. They come on and they're like, well, okay, Russ, figure out how to win.
Go ahead and win it.
Go ahead and win it for us.
Yep.
All right, let's move on here. We've got number 16, Robert Woods with the LA Rams. I like Woods. I've always liked Woods. There's something about a guy who you can just rely on getting those targets, getting those
catches.
Never
comes off the field.
Yeah, he's a little bit bigger
run blocker.
Yeah, he's a little bit bigger guy. Like, I feel like Robert Woods is the reason that I think Allen Lazard is the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay, and it's because LaFleur, the coach of the Packers, is a McVay, disciple, and having a wide receiver who can be an inline blocker is key. And seeing some of the pancake blocks that Allen Lazard was throwing on dudes last year makes me go, he's probably going to be wide receiver 2. Now, Devin Funchess is on the field. He's a big guy too, right? So I don't want to spend my time talking about those guys, but Robert Woods is that prototype. He's that bigger guy who could stay on the field. He can block in the run game as an extra blocker. He allows you to run that 12 personnel, but really have a third extra blocker that's on the field besides the 2 tight ends. But he's also a guy who can run that, 9-10 yard curl route and confuse the defense, make them think that that's what he's doing, or that that's where they're going, or that they're going to run the ball and he's open now. All kinds of options. I think that he opens up that offense for them, and a lot of stuff hinges off of what he is doing, because he's that versatile piece in the offense. And so that I like Robert Woods. He's just super consistent. Even when the offense disappeared last year, he was still getting 8+ targets a game.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm really tired of the disrespect that Robert Woods gets. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like maybe it's because he went from the Bills to the Rams. You know what I mean? And the Rams are, even though now they're in LA, it's just they're still not talked about enough. And you mentioned that the guy is huge when it comes to wide receivers, and he's not afraid to get in there and get dirty and do some run blocking. And that means he stays on the field, and that means there's more opportunities, let's say, in case they check out of it.
Yeah.
And he's always kind of lacked that touchdown potential that you really want. He's always kind of lacked the touchdowns.
Well, last year he really fell off pace last year.
He did, but he was a lot of unlucky numbers whenever you look at it.
It really was.
And whenever it comes to Cooper Kupp, we talked about him. That's going to be hard to repeat what he did. He had 10 touchdowns last year, and with the drop in play that he had and a drop in targets, I just think that could maybe bring Robert Woods back up when it comes to that touchdown potential. So this is a guy that's still going to have that same target volume, but yet he could have more touchdowns. So I've always liked Robert Woods, and in my opinion, he is disrespected in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Every year, he's like Jarvis Landry. He's always going to outperform his ADP.
He gets a little more yards, though. My thought, though, is also that they just didn't improve that offensive line enough. They're still going to need that.
They're still going to play from
the field. Yeah, they're still going to play from behind. They're still going to have to keep Goff off his butt. You know, they're just going to have to figure that out. I think that keeps Robert Woods on the field more. So, who do you have for me at 15 here?
All right, number 15. This is one that you should probably start off with. This one. It's DeVante Parker, the Miami Dolphins, and you've been pounding the table on this one when it comes to DeVante Parker, basically because of what he did last year. Yeah. I can't remember, was he top 7 or after how many weeks or something like that? Like
after week 2, he was the number 2 wide receiver.
Okay, after week 2. So. Yeah, and it's one of those things where his numbers did go up even more from whenever Preston Williams got hurt. Yeah. But he was doing it before Preston Williams got hurt whenever it came to his numbers improving. And it's one of those things where for Dolphins fans, they're like, about dang time.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a first-round pick, and you kind of have a lot of duds there. He's always kind of flashed, coming from Louisville, I believe. It's just he's never put it all together. And, hey, let's go ahead and do it with Ryan Fitzpatrick as your quarterback.
I mean, that's what a lot of guys have, though.
They have, because you know what? Guess what happens?
He throws it.
He throws a lot because he puts the team in positions where he's going to throw picks, and they're going to play from behind. And, hey, guess what? In fantasy football, we love that because that means garbage time. That means yards. And that means, hey, bring me some more DeVante Parker. Yeah. And I've gotten, a little bit better on the rankings when it comes to DeVante Parker. It's just hard for me to trust a guy that finally came out as a 5th-year wide receiver. That's my only issue, is because of
he came out as his 4th year. It was his 4th year. He just got his 5th year exercised. I'm pretty sure.
I don't believe so. He signed a 2-year contract extension. So,
was it?
All right. Yeah. Well, give me some more DeVante Parker.
Look, this guy is. You got to just have the faith. Pull the trigger, guys. Like, seriously. Yeah, you know what? Last year I went and I picked him up. I don't remember when I picked him up, but I picked him up fairly early, and I had a heck of a time saying, okay, just put him in the lineup. Just do it. Put him in the lineup. I was fairly deep at wide receiver, but I was like, I can upgrade here. This guy can be an upgrade potentially. I put him in my lineup, and he did not come back out. And he performed so well, it was ridiculous. There were games where it was just like, well, okay, so I'm going to mark him down for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then he'd have it 6 catches into the game in the first quarter, like that sort of stupidness, because Ryan Fitzpatrick just focused in him. He just zeroed in on him and Mike Gesicki, and that was the offense. Now, you got to look at it and say, okay, well, they've added Jordan Howard, they've added Matt Breida, and they've added no wide receivers, right? They got Preston Williams back, and I think that's why you can get a value pick here out of DeVante Parker. A lot of people are still going, oh, man, Preston Williams, he's going to steal that value right there, right? I mean, look, guys, when Preston Williams went down, DeVante Parker's targets went up 2 per game. Like, it went up 2 targets per game. And that's not that much when you look at how many, like, there was a 20% jump. Right, it was a little bit. It was like 18% jump. That is a decent amount, but it's not like he wasn't getting. It wasn't like he was being targeted 4 or 5 times a game. He was being targeted as a wide receiver 1 still.
Yep.
It's just that it wasn't working. And guess what, guys? He figured out how to beat Stephon Gilmore. He's the guy who broke him. He's the only one. Well, he's not the only one. The word's out on him. They figured out that if he's inside the numbers and he's got his hips angled one way, you run your route a different way. And if he's outside the numbers, he's got his hips angled a different way, you press your route in a different direction. And they figured out he is a robot. He runs his blocking the same every time. Yeah. And he doesn't travel with wide receivers too. That's another problem. So, yeah, you've got to face Stephon Gilmore. And that was my concern always, was like, oh, you got 2 weeks against the top flight defense in New England, right? He broke them. He straight up broke them. It was him and Ryan Fitzpatrick that were the reason that the Patriots ended up in the wild card round. So
real quick, DeVante's headed into his 6th year.
Okay.
So he played 5th year last year. It's weird. I would look this up, and he actually on March 12th of 2019 signed a 2-year contract extension through 2020 season. And then the very same year, December of last year, he signed a 4-year extension. So it's like, okay, he balls out. All right, let's go ahead and just give him another 4-year one. Let's go ahead.
And they didn't add anybody else in the wide receiver department. They didn't. He's it.
Yep.
So
what we got next?
All right, so moving on, we have Calvin Ridley of the Atlanta Falcons at number 14 for us. Yep. We're both high on Calvin Ridley. We think that he's due for a huge breakout this year. I think he's in our most recent breakouts episode, so you should check that one out. And look, this guy is in an offense that's going to throw the ball close to 700 times this year. They usually are in the top 3 in pass attempts. They were number 1 last year in pass attempts. I see no reason why that's going to change this year. They have a more effective running back, most likely this year. Mm-hmm. And so that's going to open things up a little bit. This is a pass catching running back too. So they're not going to slow the offense down, changing their running back. Devontae Freeman, not a great runner, not a great pass catching running back. And so that slowed the team down a little bit. This team's going to be a little more up tempo. They're going to go from like 670 plus passes last year to 700 possibly this year. And who's they going to throw to? Yeah, Julio, Calvin Ridley, and Hayden Hurst. And then the next guy is Russell Gage.
Right.
And I mean, if you want to take a deep flyer on Russell Gage, go for it. But he's not likely to overtake Calvin Ridley anytime soon.
No.
And I mentioned before that Michael Gallup is one of those guys for me who's primed to become a wide receiver 1. Calvin Ridley's right there. Mm-hmm. He's right there too. He's not proven it as much in my mind as Gallup has, but he's not very far behind him. He's not.
I don't know about all that.
I like the overall offensive situation a little bit better in Dallas than I like in Atlanta. So that's why I've got him slightly behind. And I also believe in Julio's ability to maintain wide receiver 1 better than Amari Cooper. So overtaking and becoming the wide receiver 1 on that team is it's a higher hill to climb for Calvin Ridley than it is for Michael Gallup.
Right.
In my mind.
So for me,
I like him.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to overtake Julio, but I think this offense could sustain 2 wide receiver 1s in fantasy football. And I mean, I think we still have him ranked a little bit, lower just because of the fact that, it's hard to do that. It's hard to, guess that or predict that. I mean, last year, in Tampa Bay, they had that with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And I kind of see that jump that Chris Godwin had, and I correlate that with Calvin Ridley, what he can do. I mean, last year, Godwin was usually the 16th wide receiver off the board, and he finished number 2. And guess what? Where we have Calvin Ridley, we have him at 14. There's a lot of people saying 16, 17, 18 is where you should be drafting Calvin Ridley at wide receiver, and he could finish as a top 12 wide receiver. Everything's there for that to happen. Yeah. He's talented. He's a heck of a route runner.
He's also on our fantasy football team this year. So
do what?
He's also on our quarantine community.
Yes, he is
this year. So
we definitely, we targeted him, and thankfully the fantasy football community said yes, Calvin Ridley's a great value where we got him, and that's why he's on our team. But you talked about Michael Gallup maybe showing off a little bit more than Calvin Ridley. I don't believe you. I don't I don't like that one. Because, I mean, okay, touchdown production. He had 7 last year in 14 games. He had 10 his rookie year. He's shown that he can catch the ball near the end zone, and I think it's going to happen. For some reason, people still don't like to throw the ball to Julio Jones in the end zone for some reason, and that could still happen. But all signs pointing high for him. We both love Calvin Ridley, so that's why we have him here, and that's why we love to have him on our team in the quarantine league.
Yeah.
So,
all right, who do you have for me? Number 13.
All right, to wrap up tonight's episode, we have Adam Thielen of the Minnesota Vikings, and this all has to do with the volume potential. At least that's why I think there's not a whole lot of wide receivers, there as well. They did sign Justin Jefferson, they drafted Justin Jefferson out of LSU. He's now on the reserve COVID list, sadly. So hopefully everything's good with that. But outside of that, you have Olabisi Johnson, you have Tajay Sharp, and some other people that you probably have never heard of, including the last 2 I just said. There's not a whole lot there. Kirk Cousins is going to have to throw the ball. This is a run-heavy team, but they're going to have to throw the ball. And guess where that ball is going to be thrown to? Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
I mean, the tight end room, okay, they have Kyle Rudolph. Okay, they have, Irv Smith Jr., or is that with the Ravens?
No,
he's with the Vikings.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's like, there's not a whole lot there so that means targets are going to be there. It's just health when it comes to Adam Thielen. He had been healthy for many years up until last year, and that really hurt him, and that just threw his whole season off. But even when he was banged up and on the field with Stephon Diggs, he was still the number 1 wide receiver in that room and, in Kirk Cousins' eyes, and that hasn't changed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit lower than you are on
Yes.
Adam Thielen. My reasoning behind that usually is, with regard to him, is that I feel like his floor is a little bit lower than a guy I want as a wide receiver 1. Okay. He has really big blow-up games. I mean, historically he has, right? He's had 200-plus yard games. I've seen a few of them happen. I actually remember when both he and DeVante Adams blew up for over 200 yards and several touchdowns in the same game. It was sick. It was ridiculous. But my issue is that he has those big blow-up games, and then that makes his season look better in hindsight than it actually was. I feel like his floor is a little too low for a guy that you're drafting as a wide receiver 1. So I'll take him as a top-end wide receiver 2, early middle wide receiver 2. I don't like him as a wide receiver 1, and that's why I've got him a little bit further. I've got him, I think, at 18. I think you have him at 9. He's sitting at 13 for us. I'm comfortable with him in the 13, 14, 15 range. That's okay. I'd take him there, but he's not somebody I'm targeting in that location. And often there's another guy I can take at that spot. And so because the value is still there are guys I believe a little bit more in as having like a more solid floor. With my wide receiver 1, I want a guy who's got that really high floor. My wide receiver 2, I'm looking for somebody who might have a high floor but has a lot of upside to them as well, has that real chance to have those big blow-up games. That's why I'm looking for somebody like Adam Thielen as a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why I fade him as a wide receiver 1, got him as a wide receiver 2.
This guy he has an opportunity of maybe leading the league in targets just because of there's
nobody else to throw. Yeah. It's the same thing with DeVante Adams, though, right?
Yeah.
It's come down to just the 2 of them and a bunch of guys.
You're gonna draft based off of situations, and this is one of those situations because of what's behind them.
Yep.
That's why you do it.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's it for us tonight.
Yep.
We're going to, I think, finish up with wide receivers tomorrow, and we'll catch the top 12 then. Yep. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and click that bell so that you're notified every time we upload the best fantasy football podcast on the internet. We thank you again for being a fan of The Upside, and we will see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.